Hello, this is cjhoyle, and welcome to day 13 of my solo canoeing adventure on the Trent-Severn Waterway. Last night I camped here at Loch 7, Glen Ross, here on the Trent River portion of the canal system. And it was a fairly, quiet, calm night here. Very, very quiet area of the river, but still relatively civilized with a convenience store back over that way. But anyways, this morning I woke up at about 6:30 or so because I'm going to be heading down further down the river, paddling towards the next lock station, which is about 10 kilometers away, and they don't open until 10 o'clock. So I don't want to get there too early, so I'm hoping to get on the water today at around 8 o'clock. So the time is now about 7:45, and I've got my entire campsite packed up and loaded onto the canoe dock here, ready to load into the canoe and begin my day of paddling. So my plan for today is to paddle from here at Loch 7 down to Loch number 1 in the community of Trenton. I'll begin by heading east on the Trent River, but then wrap around to the south. When I reach the community of Frankfort, I'll have quite a few locks to paddle through, but they'll ultimately lead me to my destination. Alright, so the canoe is fully loaded, and here I say goodbye to Glen Ross. This morning it's kind of foggy and misty, and the mist is coming down and sort of forming on top of different things. So I've reached the point in the river here where it curves from heading in the east direction to heading in the south direction. So far the river's been really nice and quiet this morning, and I've also got my portable AM/FM radio working again after dropping in the water yesterday. So the sun's now starting to peek through the clouds, and the scenery here is really beautiful. This is a really nice part of the river. I really can't get over the natural beauty of the river this morning. I really hadn't expected the Trent River would look like this. I expected it would be a lot narrower with a lot more flow, but I guess the dams have changed the river into more of a series of lakes. Well, I don't quite have the whole river to myself, but pretty close at least. I just love these big tree-covered hills that seem to line the sides of the river. So up ahead I can see a water tower in the distance, and I believe that's the water tower for Frankfort, which is where the lock station is that I'm heading towards. There's a little trailer park along this area of the canal, and lots of nice decks. The path leading into Frankfort is this very narrow channel. There's sort of an island over there dividing it from the rest of the river. So there's the dam for Frankfort, and the canal continues over here to the left. So up ahead there's the bridge across the canal for Frankfort, and beyond there I can see the yellow gates of the lock. Alright, so 10.3 kilometers paddled, and the time is 5 minutes to 10 o'clock. I saw someone over there with a green shirt who's probably a lock staff member, and I'm sure they'll be around to let me through the lock pretty soon. Alright, so they're already opening up the gates for me, so I'll head directly inside. So this is lock number 6, Frankfort. And while I'm in the lock, I'll take this opportunity to enjoy my usual overnight oats breakfast and some orange juice. Alright, so the water's all the way down, and here come the big gates. Alright, so now I'm through lock 6 and on my way towards lock 5, which is really not far away. Lock 5 is called Trent. In fact, up ahead in the distance I can already see the next dam. So there's a closer look at that next dam, which looks like it's got some hydroelectric generating capacity. And then over there towards the left, that's where the lock is that I'm heading for. So I looked it up, and it's the Frankfort generating station, and it has a nameplate capacity of 3 megawatts. Alright, so here I am coming into lock number 5, Trent. And they've already got one of the gates open for me. Alright, here I am loaded inside lock number 5. And I was noticing that the lock station building here looks very similar to the one that I saw yesterday at Myers Lock. It's a 2-story building with a big porch. Yesterday I'd speculated that I thought maybe it was an old farmhouse that they were using for their lock station building. But considering this one is very similar, I guess it's just a design that they used during a certain era when they were building lock station buildings. Lots of zebra mussels in this part of the lock here, squirting out water. Alright, here comes the big gate, and here I'll clear lock number 5. So now that I'm through lock 5, I'm heading towards lock 4, which is not too far away. Lock 4 is called Batawa. So there I can see the next dam ahead, and the lock station is over towards the left. Alright, so here we are. Just to the left of the dam is lock station number 4, Batawa. Just noticing that the lock station building is very similar here as well. Alright, we're all the way down, and here comes the gate for lock number 4. Onwards to lock number 3 now. And in a similar fashion to the last one, I can already see the dam in the distance. So this dam that's up ahead is just one of two dams that I'll be going past before I get to the next log station. The path that I'll be taking is over towards the left. There's a canal there. I can't quite see it yet, but it should be coming up pretty soon. And up ahead here, there are some big power lines, and also it looks like an oil pipeline that goes underneath of the river here. You're not allowed to dredge or anchor here because of it. So the dam here on the right is under construction, and it looks like they've got some sort of a makeshift bridge to allow equipment to be able to get over there. So I'm hoping they'll be able to move that out of the way so that I can get through. There's a guy standing there on that barge who hopefully can give me some instructions of how I can get through. So there's a small little gap there that he's telling me that I should be able to paddle through. Well, that was a tight fit, but I was able to manage to squeeze the canoe through that little gap. Alright, so here I'm approaching lock number 3, Glen Miller. Alright, so I've got the canoe loaded into the lock here, and I'm just noticing that the log station building here is absolutely tiny. The smallest that I've seen anywhere on the canal system. So this is the third last lock that I'll be coming through, and thinking about that, I'm a little bit sad because that means that the trip is, soon going to be over, and the locks themselves have been a real highlight of the trip for me. Alright, so we're all the way down at the bottom now, and I think this is definitely the biggest lock that I've gone through today. It's quite enormous. It feels like the biggest that I've ever gone through. Alright, well here comes the gate, and it looks like I've got another obstacle on the other side to get past because of the construction. It looks like on this one they use their barge as a ferry to get stuff across, as opposed to blocking the entire channel like the other one did. So just beyond the log station, I've got this bridge to go underneath of. This is called Johnstown Road. So looking back to the left of the log station, there's the second of the two dams that I went past. Here's a big military aircraft flying overhead, similar to the one that I saw yesterday. Just down the river from here is a big Canadian Air Force's base. So up ahead I can see the next dam, and this one also has hydroelectric generating capacity. You can see there's the Sydney Generating Station, which has a nameplate capacity of 4 megawatts. So just next to the dam, here is lock number 2, Sydney. Alright, so making my way down through lock number 2, I had a conversation with the lock staff to talk about my camping arrangements at the next lock station. Alright, here come those gates, and I can continue on to lock number 1. The very last lock of my journey. Alright, so I'm through the lock, and that big bridge up ahead is Highway 401, a major east-west highway through Ontario. If I look back this way also, you can get another look at the Sydney Generating Station next to lock 2, Sydney. Alright, so lock number 1 is not far from lock number 2, and I can already see it. And when I arrive, I'm going to tie up the canoe, and I'm going to walk around a little bit and scope things out, figure out where I want to camp, figure out if I want to lock the canoe down at the bottom. We'll see when we get there. There's a big airplane. Looks like a commercial jet, but it said Canadian Air Forces on it. Another one of those airplanes. Alright, so I scoped it out, and there's a good place for me to camp at the low side, so I'm going to go through lock number 1, my very last lock of this trip. Alright, so I've now been lowered down to the water level of Lake Ontario, and here come the big gates for the very last time on this trip. So just beyond the locks, there's this bridge here, which is for the Canadian National Railway, the CN Rail, and apparently there's trains that go over at about every 20 minutes, so it's going to be probably a pretty noisy campsite. And the area where I'll be camping is this grassy area over on my left. Unfortunately, that means I have to lift the canoe up and over the concrete wall, but I've developed a good technique for doing that. Alright, so I've got all my stuff out of the canoe, and my canoe unloaded, and I think I'm going to get to work now getting my tent set up because there are a few sort of dark clouds overhead. There's a chance of rain today, not a strong chance, but there is a chance of rain, so I want to make sure that I have the tent up, stuff inside, just in case it does start pouring. So I've got the tent set up now and all this stuff put inside of it, and I also had a little bit of lunch. So now I think I'm just going to lie down for a little bit and relax and enjoy the fact that I've arrived here so early today. So now that the sun is out and shining brightly, I was getting really hot inside my tent, so I got out and I think I'm going to walk around a little bit and explore my surroundings. So my tent is set up down there at that level, and I saw these stairs that I followed up, and from up here I can see the dam that's directly adjacent to where I'm camping, which it appears to be currently under construction, much like many of the other dams that I've seen on this trip. Here's a better perspective of my campsite with respect to the dam over there. Well, I didn't notice this before when I was walking through here. I don't know what kind of snake that is. I'm sure it's not poisonous. It's definitely bigger than a garter snake though. Oh, he sees me, or hears me. I've always had a bit of a phobia of snakes. So there's one of the many CN rail trains that's going past here, coming through Trenton, and I was reading this information display panel about the history of Lock 1, and it says that it was constructed in the years 1910, 1911, and they even have a photo of it being constructed. I also learned from this that the locks that were here on the Trent, many of them are what they call the Cadillacs of the system. They were built near the very end, so they had sort of the most innovations in them. You know, the walls were built thicker. They also made them a lot longer. They were 53.3 meters long, 175 feet, where some of the other ones are not quite as long. They also said that they have what are called more expensive wagon valves, where the water is fed in and out of the locks from these little ports on the sides, as opposed to through a hole in the gates on either side, which some of the older ones that I was seeing at the beginning of my trip would have instead. They also have a photo on here from 1964, and in the little blurb below there, they're mentioning that in this photo you can see the lockmaster's house here and the lock office here, both of which are gone, and they've been replaced with this newer lock station office building that was built in 1992. But looking at this was interesting because I sort of recognized this building as being very similar to those lock station offices that I was seeing earlier today and yesterday that I noticed were 2 stories, and I figured, oh, those must be, you know, farmhouses that were moved here. But I believe that all the lock stations originally had a house for the person who, you know, managed the lock throughout the season, and some of the lock stations have kept those, and they maintain those as their current office building. This is definitely the noisiest lock that I've been to. It seems every 10 minutes or so there's either a train or a plane going by. This nice map here puts the Trent-Severn Waterway in perspective. So you can see it starts up here in Georgian Bay, and it allows boats to get directly from here through the system down into Lake Ontario without having to go all the way through all these other Great Lakes to get there first. On my trip, I started here in Lake Simcoe, and I paddled all the way down here to Rice Lake. That's where I got off the water for a night, and then I was placed back in the water up here in Hastings, and now for the last couple days I've been paddling down, and I'm now down here in Trenton. Tomorrow I'll be paddling this section here, which is called the Murray Canal. So I found a trail over here from my campsite that leads to the lower side of the dam, and you can see that the parts of the dam that are closer here, those have already been replaced. They look very new, and they're still doing some work over there. You can see they have a temporary dam built there to keep the water out while they're doing their work and replacing that section. So I've just followed this pathway through the woods, and it's led me to the very far tip of the island that's formed between the canal and the river. And over on the other side I can see a big stack of logs over there, and I believe those are related to the bigger operation that you see here, which is a paper mill, the Norampak paper mill. And then further down you can see another old railway bridge, and down that way is where the center of the community of Trenton is. And I'll probably be walking there this evening to have my dinner. And then of course, if I keep swinging this way, this is the canal that I'll be paddling through tomorrow. So the time is now about 4:30, and I'm gonna walk over and see if I can find something for dinner in Trenton. It's a big plane. This one's a jet. So I've crossed over to the east side of the river, and I'm making my way towards downtown Trenton along a street called Sydney Street. It's a shame I don't have my bike here with me to take advantage of these bike lanes. Check out these little mini JDM trucks. Got a bunch of them for sale. And this one here at the end, instead of having wheels, it's got tracks on the bottom of it. That's the most expensive one. $15,500. The others are all $10,500. This one over here is only $6,500. Still seems like a lot of money for a truck that's guaranteed to be at least 20 years old. Alright, so I've made it down to the Trenton waterfront now, and there's a nice trail along it that I'll be able to follow. So the route that I took to get here along this eastern shore probably wasn't the fastest way for me to get here. It would have been a bit faster if I had walked along that western shoreline, but my plan is that I will take that on the way back, so I want to see different scenery and do sort of a loop to get here. Actually, probably the very fastest way for me to have gotten here was to just take the canoe and paddle it down to here. But then I have to worry about finding a place to lock the canoe, and also have to worry about, when I'm paddling back, if it might be, dark by then or not. So I decided to walk, and it's nice getting, to see a little bit more of Trenton than I would have just seen from the water tomorrow. So it looks like most of the downtown of Trenton is over there on the western shore. So I'll cross this bridge here to get there. So I'm still over here on the east side of the river, and there is a small downtown here. I suspect that this bridge here wasn't always there when the town was developing, and this was probably its own separate community for a long time. From the bridge here I see a big boat there that's mooring. I wonder if they're heading up the canal tomorrow. Looking out over the other side of the bridge, I can see the mouth of the Trent River where it empties out into the Bay of Quinte. I'll be paddling through that tomorrow. Let's hope it won't be too windy. So I'm nearly on the east side of the river now, and this is where the main downtown of Trenton is. This building is the old clock tower, built in 1888. This is a pretty interesting downtown. It has some unusual angles of streets. So the community of Trenton is part of the municipality called Quinte West. This is an interesting building here. It looks like an old 3-story house where they added a storefront onto the front of it. They even have a little movie theater in downtown Trenton. This here is the old Trenton Town Hall building, built in 1861. Trenton is definitely an old town. There's another look at the old clock tower from further away. Very beautiful. So after walking a bit around the town, the place that I've decided for dinner is called Thai Sushi. I've already had Thai food once on my trip, so tonight I'll have some sushi. So there's been lots of people ordering takeout, but it seems like I'm the only person that's dining in, and I ordered their local Trenton sushi rolls and a sushi pizza with salmon on it. That was a really delicious meal. I really enjoyed it. So now it's time to walk back to the lock station. Oh, there's a groundhog, or a woodchuck, or many other names that they have, a whistle pig. Hungry little guy. So just looking up the river from here, I can see another railway bridge. I believe this one's for the Canadian Pacific Railway line that also passes through Trenton. There's another smaller groundhog right here. Doesn't seem too scared of me. So here's a closer look at the big bridge for the CP rail line. So when I start paddling tomorrow, I'll come out on the left side of that triangle over there, and then I'll make my way down the river and under a few bridges, and then I'll make my way out into the Bay of Quinte. There's a closer look at the paper mill across the river. I can definitely smell the fumes coming off of it, but it kind of reminds me of a pizza box, which I don't mind the smell of. So I've just about reached the island where I'm camping, and there's been this really nice walking trail for me to walk back along. So I made it back to my campsite, and when I did, there was a bunch of people who were fishing right beside my tent, and I thought this was kind of, amusing that they happened to, of all the places they could choose to fish, they happened to choose, like the area right beside my tent. So I was filming, making that exact comment that I just made there, and one of the people who was fishing saw me filming and told me he didn't appreciate being filmed and asked me to delete the clip. So that's why I'm telling you that story now instead of showing you that clip. But anyways, made it back, started getting ready for bed, and it got dark like really fast. You can see that's why it's like, pitch black outside. Yeah, I got ready for bed, getting ready to go in my tent and have a fairly early night. Today was a really enjoyable day of paddling. I really enjoyed the scenery, particularly near the beginning with the big hills on either side of the river, and it was just really calm and still, like no wind for most of the day. And of course enjoyed going through all those locks. I went through a total of 6 locks today, which is probably the highest, tied for the highest, I think, number of locks that I've done in a day. And yeah, I'm kind of going to miss going through locks. I think I did the math and figured out that I went through a total of 38 of them during my 13 days on the Trent-Severn Waterway. But that's now come to an end because I'm now been locked down to the same level as Lake Ontario, and tomorrow I'll be paddling down the river the rest of the way and into the Bay of Quinte, which is part of Lake Ontario, and then making my way through the Murray Canal to a pickup point over on the other side in the bay where Presqu'Île Provincial Park is. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed joining me for day number 13. If you watched all the way to the end of this video, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.